Hello guys, welcome to Freedom Intelligence Network. Today's guest is the youthful, beautiful Uyghur woman, Zumretay, currently living in Germany. And she's somebody that we met in person in Dharamshala in India last year when we were attending the international conference. She grew up both in East Turkestan and Canada, so that means that she is really fluent in English. As a Japanese person living in Japan, my impression of Americans in particular is that you guys have a somewhat biased impression on Muslim people, but listening to her will probably make you realize that how amazing Uyghur people are. So that's part of the reason why we wanted to invite her to have her speak for Uyghur community. So let's dive in. So hi, Zumretay.
Hi, Yoko and Hide.
Hi. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So firstly, could you give us a brief introduction of yourself? Like
Yes.
what you do and so on.
Sure. So my name is Zumretay Arkin. I'm the Program and Advocacy Manager at the World Uyghur Congress. We're an international umbrella organization that represents the human rights and democracy and freedom for Uyghur people. And we have over, I think, 40 affiliate organizations, Uyghur organizations around the world. And our headquarters are based in Munich. So I've been here since, I think, September. Yes, since mid-September. But I was previously based in Canada. I was born in East Turkestan, but I left with my family at the age of 10. So I grew up in Canada, and so I came here not too long ago.
You had a difficult times like transitioning from Uyghur to Canada and then now Germany?
No, not at all. I think that's like one thing about me is that I adapt to new environments quite easily, but also I think depending on the age when you immigrate to a new place I was 10 years old. I was very young, so I adapted really quickly. And even when I got to Germany, it was just a matter of maybe 3-4 months before I really quickly adapted. So yeah.
Nice. So do you have any memories from back home in East Turkestan?
Oh yeah, definitely. I have vivid memories of East Turkestan, of the homeland, of like my upbringing and like just family. It was just so joyful and so great.
We heard about America passed a bill on Uyghur. I believe it's called Uyghur Human Rights Policy Act.
Yeah.
What do you think about the significance of that?
Yeah, definitely. It's one of the questions that have come up the most recently by press and everyone else. It's definitely, I think, it has a huge significance, especially like symbolically. I think most of it is, for the Uyghur community, whether it's in the diaspora or even Uyghurs in East Turkestan, I think it has a huge meaning, and it mostly gives hope for the Uyghur community that given the current situation in East Turkestan, the human rights violations, perpetrated by China, it gives hope to us that a superpower like the US is actually doing something to address the situation, because this is the first country to do it so openly and so directly, because this policy act, like you said, it directly targets and sanctions officials who are involved in perpetrating these crimes and facilitating the crimes against humanity. So for us, it's a sign of hope. It's a sign of it's also a result of many years of advocacy from organizations, Uyghur organizations like ours or many others. And to see that high officials in the US senators are, because it was pretty unanimous when it was voted both in the Congress and in the House. So to see that such a unanimous voice has endorsed our cause is a great thing. But I think like on the practical side, it also really says that, countries or the US is not going to let this happen, and it's kind of a pressure on China, diplomatic pressure, but also, like the sanctions include visa bans, like assets freezes, and so on. So I think it's a really good way because it's the first legislation that addresses or covers the Uyghurs' human rights crisis.
From what we heard, the Policy Act is made by bipartisan politicians in the US. Like the majority of the congressmen agreed on this. And why do you think it was possible to do it? Like, was it because of the Uyghur people talked to them a lot and so on?
Yeah, I think it's like I said before, it's a result of many years of work, many years of advocacy. We've been advocating for such laws to be implemented using the Magnitsky laws to be implemented in the US. And obviously in DC, we have a couple of Uyghur organizations. And also, we just opened a new office there as well. So it's just, a lot of the work that has been fruitful. And I don't think that it would have been possible without, especially like people don't see it. They just see like the front image, but behind that is a lot of work and advocacy throughout the years. I think like a couple of years ago, I think before maybe 2016, not many people knew about the Uyghurs. And that was also true in the US, not many people. Now it's one of the most highlighted topics in the international media. So like, it's just like continuous pushing policymakers and meeting them and just making sure that the Uyghur issue is on their agenda. And I think the thing is, it's not an American thing, It's not because US adopted a law that it makes it American. It should be, it's not about either like China and US trade war. It should be human rights, a global crisis that everyone should be able to endorse as a cause and help out and do something about it proactively. It's not about just the US or just China. It's everyone's business. So everyone should, take a firm stance on China and push them to respect human rights.
Yeah, we agree by 100%. So as you said, this is the first case in America. And how about Europe? Like, for example, you're there in Germany, and how are things turning out? We're asking because in Japan, we don't hear about Europe.
Yeah, it might be because of the geographical distance. But I think it's things are evolving in Europe as well. I think maybe less on a national level, but more in a coalition. Because one thing is like in Europe, I'm also quite new in this environment, is that European countries, they don't really like to do something on their own. They really use the European Union as which also I guess makes sense because it just shows that there's a big coalition and everyone endorses it, and it's just more impactful. But I think even on national levels, we've been advocating as well with European countries and really making sure that they do take a stance. They don't just stay silent. And I think it's been effective in some ways. And especially like at the UN level, a lot of the European countries always, supports the Uyghur cause and bring it in the Human Rights Councils as well. And also in the European Parliament, there's been lately a lot of actions and a lot of support coming from there. And a lot of the MEPs are, coming together and voicing this issue using their position and their power and status. So I think it's shifting to a more direct actions approach, but I think it still needs a lot of pushing and work. I don't think it's we shouldn't be excluding the European Union or the EU countries, because they're very important, because they have a lot of, it's a coalition of countries. So we should be even more stressing that. But I think I think we'll start seeing more concrete things from the European countries soon.
So there are Uyghur people here in Japan as well, especially the ones in the World Uyghur Congress and also other organizations. But as for the World Uyghur Congress, they went to see the National Diet members here. Hopefully we will get to do something similar to the United States.
For sure. I think each countries have their own political environments, and so it's not the same. What works for the US doesn't necessarily work for Japan or other countries, and I think we also have to take into account that the differences, and maybe try to find a way on how to best use these differences at our advantage. And I think condemning China publicly is good, because it's publicly shaming China and putting public pressure on them, because one thing is that they do now care about their international image. So I think that's a really good tactic. But also sometimes some countries cannot afford to do it publicly, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be doing it at all. They can do it behind closed doors, and that should also be, one way to advocate for this cause is behind closed doors, or even just in bilaterally with China or Chinese officials themselves, without necessarily having the whole community having a bird eye view on what's happening. But I think it's important that the countries stay transparent about this, and that they do condemn it, and they do take concrete measures to address this and find a solution, because the situation is just getting worse. And especially with the new report that came out yesterday on forced sterilization and abortion targeting Uyghur women in East Turkestan, that's, that kind of enforces the idea or the concept that it's a genocide now, because for a long time people have been very reticent on condemning what's happening in East Turkestan as genocide, because genocide is usually very vaguely defined in international laws. But with this new report, it really does fit the definition of genocide when a state tries to control the birth rates and change the demographics. It fits the International Convention on Genocide and also the Statute of Rome. So a lot of international laws that are there, China is not respecting any of them, and all of our civil and political rights, anything. Just the Uyghur people are not even considered as human beings.
So speaking of genocide, though, July 5th is coming, and we are wondering what you want to tell the world about July 5th.
So July 5th is, I think it's a turning point for a lot of Uyghurs, and I think the Uyghur movement just in general, it's been a dark summer, I would say. July 5th, 2009, it was a turning point. I know in my personal life, it was also in the political atmosphere or political situation in East Turkestan. it was also a turning point. Basically, the Urumqi massacre, that kind of how it started is that I think June 25th, there were a couple of Uyghurs, number of Uyghur workers who were killed in a toy factory in Guangdong, in China, and that was the result of, I think, fake allegations of rape. A lot of Han people in that factory just freely assaulted and murdered Uyghurs. And that was also the result of ethnic tensions and clashes that was there for years because of Chinese repressive policies implemented in East Turkestan, and the putting Uyghurs as, you know, second-class citizens and treating us differently, and the like deeply rooted discrimination against Uyghurs in Chinese society. So there were these murders, and basically the Chinese government didn't do anything to address this. You would expect the state to address this kind of issue, especially when it comes to ethnic clashes, but they didn't do anything. So in July, in Urumqi, Uyghur people were fed up with this ongoing discrimination against the Uyghurs for absolutely no reason. So they took the streets on July 5th. Everyone took the streets on July 5th to protest peacefully. That was a peaceful protest, to just, you know, show and have a dialogue, or show the government that Uyghurs are fed up with this discrimination. And they were quickly met with a brutal crackdown from the authorities, from the police, from the military. So that quickly escalated into riots, and quickly escalated to massacre as well, because after July 5th, it's, you know, the crackdown was real, and the police and they just started targeting Uyghurs for no reason. It was completely out of proportion, and what started as a peaceful protest quickly turned in a violent, you know, response from the authorities. And on July 7th, that was the day where, you know, hundreds of Uyghurs were arrested, killed, disappeared. And actually, I was there on July 7th. I arrived on July 7th in Urumqi, because it was my first summer back home after immigrating to Canada. And we knew that it you know, these riots started in July 5th. We had been following from Canada what was happening in the news, but we took a chance and we went because my grandma was sick, and we just quickly realized the you know, the ampleur, the scale of what was happening. And for the first time, I was 16 then. I didn't know, you know, much of, I guess, like the political situation, but that was the first time that I really, you know, realized and grasped the notion that, oh, like, you know, we're facing a real problem and discrimination in our own country. And that's why I say that it was a turning point in my life, because this is where my activism began. Because when I went back to Canada, I told myself that all these things were happening, and I couldn't let that, you know, I couldn't just sit there and do nothing, because I've seen horrible things, I've heard horrible things. And during that summer, I've stayed there for 2 months, and I just kept seeing people disappear and hearing about enforced disappearances. And, you know, a lot of the Uyghur students were targeted, because the movement was also initiated by Uyghur young people, young Uyghurs. And over that summer, hundreds and maybe even thousands, we don't know, because the official data doesn't really say. China is not transparent, but from the witnesses and the Uyghurs and the diaspora, and, you know, a lot of them were witnesses during that summer, we've seen like thousands of people just randomly disappear. So it was a really huge, you know, turning point for our advocacy. And for the first time, it was public. Like China really has shown that they really don't care, and they will fight back against. They won't let any freedom exist in China or in East Turkestan especially, and they will target minorities and they will target Uyghurs. And I think this is because the thing is, today's concentration camps, today's situation didn't happen overnight. It was a slow build up over the years, and I think 2009 that was a huge contributor to the current repression. The way the authorities, intervened during that summer.
As China doesn't care, and at the same time, the world is not very aware of what's happening to Uyghur people, I feel still. So as for July 5th, though, what are you guys going to do? Like, are you guys holding events and so on?
Yeah. So this year is a bit different because of Corona. It's usually every year, we organize protests, but this time it's a bit different. We're gonna do online panels and kind of a way to commemorate this 11th year of that massacre virtually, because this is what we can do right now. So there will be other all the Uyghur organizations across the globe, they will be doing something to commemorate this day and bring a light on what really happened.
So right now, I guess your focus is like what's in front of you right now is July 5th, but we are wondering what's the main activity of yours, like what you are pouring your energy into.
Yeah. So the World Uyghur Congress, what we focus on is, advocating for human rights in different platforms. And the main platforms we work in are the United Nations, that's for one. And actually, I'm in charge of the United Nations advocacy and everything that's related to UN. I specifically focus on that. So that entails, engaging with different UN bodies. We know that there are couples, engaging with independent experts, like special procedures, and making sure that they know about what's happening and they know about the recent developments and the updates. They stay updated on the issue, and these people are our allies because they're very useful in putting the message out there and publicly address China and condemn their policies. And they do that through public statements, press releases, joint letters, joint statements, and sending letters to China. And also just, a couple of different forums or meetings like the Human Rights Council that's actually starting soon. That's, I think, starting today, or there's like 3 different Human Rights Council meetings throughout the year. So attending to these meetings, making oral statements at the UN, participating in these forums, and making sure that we bring the Uyghur voice in these forums. And really push. What we try to push is to send, to have the High Commissioner, the UN High Commissioner, go in East Turkestan, have access to East Turkestan, and really assess the risks, the situation, what's really happening, see for herself without being instrumentalized by China or whomever. But that's one of our main, pushes for the UN, and also have independent investigation, but also push for an urgent resolution in the council, and to take urgent measures to address this. Another fora we advocate in is the European Parliament. We do a lot of work with the European Parliament. We have an office in Brussels, so everything, from meeting MEPs, and that's how we got, European Parliament members to really take this issue at heart, because of years of advocacy and having established a close relationship with these MEPs. So also the European Parliament issues resolutions and different advocacy at different advocacy levels. So that's another fora we were in. We, of course, participate in international meetings, conferences, and to build allyship as well, like you guys when we met in India, and so on with other groups, like especially the groups that are focused on China, so like Tibetan groups, Hong Kongers, Southern Mongolians, Taiwanese groups. So all these groups to have a really strong ally movement, because we can't do it all alone, you know, go like advocates for human rights in China, it's something big. And so, yeah, we do that. And also, of course, national levels, we advocate in national parliaments, especially German parliaments. We work a lot with civil society. So that's like our main focus as well, creating, you know, relationships with civil society actors, NGOs that also work on the same issues, and amplify our voice. And also, we do a lot of, you know, grassroots activities such as protests or community work. And we also work on Uyghur refugees and asylum cases. We provide support for them, and, you know, take it with refugee agencies like the UN, UNHCR, and so on. So these are our main focuses, and this is just like the main day-to-day kind of work we do throughout the year. And so, yeah.
As for the alliance, we are here. Yeah, Uyghur people are not alone. So, and we are really grateful that we got to see you in India. And yeah, we will.
Likewise. Yeah. Thank you so much for your support.
Hold on.
Oh, doppa.
Yeah.
That looks really good. Put it like a little more behind. Yeah, like that. Perfect. That looks so good. You look like a Uyghur man now. Oh, that's so nice that you have this. It's very precious.
Miss Rabia Kadir.
Oh, really? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Very nice.
You have
very Doppa. Yeah.
There's a Doppa day, right?
Yeah, it's May 5th.
May 5th. Yeah. So he wears this on that day.
That's so nice. That's so great.
Before we go, we want to show you.
It looks so good. I also have mine somewhere. Next time we get you one, Yoko, a girl's version. It's very pretty.
Too.
Yeah,
we didn't know.
It's very pretty.
Yes, Uyghur culture is very like beautiful.
Yes.
This will be the end. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. See you soon.
Thank you. So that's the end of the interview. What did you guys think? The majority of my viewers come from America, and I want to address again that the Uyghur Human Rights Policy Act, it really means a lot to Uyghur people. Of course, it comes from Uyghur people's efforts and everything, but American side contributed a lot. It has become a hope for not only Uyghur people, but also other Asians that are oppressed by CCP-led China right now. So I want to thank again for American people. You guys made this happen. So obviously, Uyghur people went through a lot. However, they are strong and they have allies like us over here in Japan and of course in America and elsewhere. It really means a lot for us all that you are here watching this video and learning about what's going on. Yes, I wish I had my own Doppa. Freedom Intelligence Network owned a Patreon page. So if you liked this video or if you can support us, please check out our Patreon page. So thank you guys so much for watching till the end. Until next time, take care and we will talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye. Hey!